This is a Leadify podcast.
Walk Across America, finish line. March 17th to October 30th, 2025. Cape Henlopen, Delaware to La Push, Washington. I'm done. After 7.5 months and 4,000-ish miles, I've reached the Pacific Ocean. It's hard to wrap my head around the fact that I'm done, and my brain doesn't know what to do without constantly looking at maps, routes, and weather. But I'm finally finished. I think that this would be considered an unsupported hike because I walked by myself and didn't have a team following behind in a support vehicle. But in reality, I had a huge support team of amazing friends and, at the time, random strangers that I could not have done this without. So if you're reading this or listening, thank you for supporting and encouraging me from afar. Thank you for the monetary support when I didn't have enough. Thank you for the memes that were sent to make me laugh. Thank you for the phone calls when I was lonely and buying me lunch when I was hungry. Thank you for caring about my silly journey, but mostly thank you for making me feel so loved. Really and truly, I could not have done this journey without the help of hundreds of amazing, kind, loving people. I have so many thoughts from the last 7 months, but I think it'll take me a while to sort through everything I've seen and experienced. Maybe this is why people write books after their adventures, and maybe I'll get around to doing that one day. For now, though, I'm going to try to process all of this, feel my feelings, let my body heal, and embrace stillness. Peace and love, friends. So it's been 4.5 months, but really only less than 2 since I've actually stopped walking. I've done another 500 or 600 miles after that. And so I'm just now getting to a point of stillness. And I'm left with a general sense of connection to the people that I've met, the people that have helped, the people that just talked to me along the way. And also a huge sense of gratitude, you know? And I feel like this is a time when those things feel really distant for a lot of people, but I feel really deeply those things in this time.
Our learning curve is dipping the front wheel into the Atlantic Ocean.
Hey friends, welcome back to Works in Progress. I'm Lucy, she, her. This series is all about asking one big question. What does it really look like to lead yourself? Each episode, you'll hear from young leaders and creators who are figuring it out in real time. Not perfect career paths, not highlight reels, just the messy, meaningful in-betweens. Today, we're joined by nomad and seeker who goes by Learning Curve, or Elsie. Last year, Elsie walked across America, from Cape Henlopen, Delaware to La Push, Washington. They were on the trail for 7.5 months, covering more than 4,000 miles from coast to coast. And along the way, they shared the highs and lows of the journey in real time on Instagram, posting unfiltered photos, videos, and reflections from the trail. Now, that's a significant stretch of time and distance, and it's only the most recent chapter in Learning Curve's story. In this episode, we're going back to the beginning, to what came before the trail, what happened along the way, and how those experiences have shaped who Elsie is today and who they're still becoming. Learning Curve, I am so glad that you're here. Thank you for trusting this space. And before we go anywhere else, I would really love for listeners to get a sense of who you are. So would you mind giving us just a quick introduction, like your name, your age, and maybe where you're from? And then I also want to come back to your trail name, Learning Curve, because I have a feeling that there's a story there.
Hi, Lucy, and thank you for having me. I go by Learning Curve, they, them. I'm 42, and I'm kind of a lifelong nomad. I grew up in an Air Force family, moving every few years until I was 13. And then I joined the Army and moved every few years, starting when I was 21. And for the last 5 years, I've been kind of wandering the country, seeing everything that there is to see. My name, Learning Curve, is a trail name. And like any good community, we all in the hiking world, we have names for each other. Usually a trail name comes from, something that you did or something that you said that's funny or a mistake that you made. And my trail name came from the fact that I had very little outside experience before I started my first thru hike. So I was planning on hiking the Colorado Trail. It's almost 500 miles, and I did no training before. And yeah, so I mean, I lived in Denver, so I was semi used to the elevation, but not used to the exercise. And it was so just me coming off the couch trying to start hiking mountains, and I watched a lot of YouTube videos, so I thought I knew, in my head I knew the stuff, but once you start doing the stuff, it's different, right? So my first day on trail, I think I walked 2 miles.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I was beat. Spent the next morning, I woke up, it was raining. It was terrible. And I went, I think, 3 miles the next day. I ended up camped at about 12,000 feet, kind of delirious, had altitude sickness for sure. And I only ate that night because some guys were up there and one guy shared ramen with me.
Wow.
And yeah, so I got off the trail that day, or the next morning, I got off trail. I went back to my friend's house and kind of just like did some hiking around the area, and got myself used to walking. And then about a week or 10 days later, I got back on the Colorado Trail. It was still tough, but it went better. And I was telling a lady that I met just kind of like all my difficulties and how tough it had been and how steep of a learning curve it was. And she said, that sounds like a good name for you. And I thought, that is a good name for me. And at the time in my life that I got the name, and then the following couple years, I learned a lot. It really resonates with me. And so I use it all the time with everybody, with my family now, my friends that are not hikers. I haven't introduced myself with my real name in years. And it just, at this point in my life, I think it fits me. And so I'm pretty happy with it.
I love that for you, Elsie. I love that for your journey. And I also love it in the context of this space, talking about what it means to be a work in progress and how to embrace that. And I feel like this idea of embracing that we're all on this sort of learning curve, depending on whatever season we find ourselves in, is just so empowering, I think. And it's a really great way to kind of own that season in a really intentional and like powerful way. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you again. I'm super excited to be here. So thank you.
You have shared before that your walk doesn't fully make sense without your backstory, which of course tracks. So I'd love to start there. When you look back at the season kind of leading up to your journey, I'd love to know, what was happening in your life at the time, and maybe what were you navigating that shaped who you were then? And how would you describe maybe this past version of yourself?
Yeah. So my first hike was August of 2021. So tail end of COVID, which was a tough time for a lot of people, and I was no exception. But really my difficulties started a few years before that. In 2018, I was discharged from the Army. I was kicked out of the Army. And a short time before that, I found out that I really enjoy cocaine. The Army doesn't want their soldiers using drugs, obviously, but also had a top secret clearance. And it's even bigger a deal when you have a clearance and you have drugs. I found cocaine at a time that I was very broken. And I did not understand the level or the depth of my hurt. And there was a few things that happened around 2016, 2017 that really brought a lot of my traumas and my hurts and my issues up, and was the cause of my cocaine addiction. And for a long time, I would say that I lost things to cocaine. But in reality, and what I say now, is that I gave up things because cocaine was more important in my life at the time. So I gave up my career,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a really good career going, and I was proud of what I was doing in the Army. And I also gave up a relationship with my kids. And up until that time, my kids were the light of my life, And, most parents say they would do anything for their kids, but it's hard to take care of your kids when you don't know how to take care of yourself. So I gave that up, and I gave up the relationship with my then partner, who I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with. Then I had a second career that would have been good. I had a union job in Colorado, and I was, kind of setting myself up for a second life after the Army, and the cocaine just, I wasn't willing to let it go. I gave up everything in my life for that drug. And it was to cover up the hurt and the pain that was inside of me that I've been carrying most of my life. I didn't know how to deal with that pain. I didn't know how to talk about that pain. And it took me a long time, but I have begun to address that pain, and I've not just begun to, but the walk was what took me to a different place inside of myself. So before the walk was all of this hurt and all of this pain. And at a couple points in time, I was hospitalized for suicidal thoughts, and some of those times were voluntary and some of those times were not voluntary. Most of those times were not voluntary. But I'm thankful now for the people that loved me to put me in those places. And I'm thankful for the people that work there that dealt with me when I didn't want to be there and I was angry, violent, and aggressive. And that time in the hospital and the intensive amounts of therapy that I got, I wasn't ready for it then, but I was ready for it later. And when I was ready for it, I had the tools that they gave me. So yeah, that was my before the walk. And then in May of 2021, I was looking for ways to die that would look accidental. And in my depression, I thought enough about the people in my life to not want to put them through a suicide in the family, because it affects a lot of people for a long time. And I didn't want to be the cause of that. So I'm watching those videos on YouTube, and I get recommended a video of this lady. Her trail name is Dixie. And she was hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. And I watched her. She just looks like a normal lady, right? Like she's not like a super athlete looking like crazy. I mean, she looks athletic, but not like Wonder Woman or something, And in this video, there's a day where she says she's going to walk 50 miles. And I thought, who walks 50 miles? That's like, why? And why? Why would you do that, right? But I watched her do it, and I watched how much fun she was having and how much she loved life. And I was laying in bed watching that video, and I said, that's what I want to do. And I decided that night that that's what I was going to do, that I was going to start hiking, and that I was going to stop using cocaine. And that was, I haven't touched cocaine since then. And it's been almost 5 years, and I have had temptation. I've had people offer me cocaine, and now I don't need it. I'm pretty happy where I'm at now, So the pain that caused me to have that addiction, to have the desire to want to use that substance to cover up all my feelings, all my pain is not there anymore. The pain is not there to cover up. So
Wow.
So that was my impetus to start walking. And then it didn't take long in nature to become a different person and for my cares and my stresses to go away. Within a couple weeks, I was in love. Within 2 weeks of being on trail, I
Wow.
decided that this was the life that I wanted to live, that I just wanted to see nature, that I wanted to be outside. And I am becoming a different person. And I'm super happy about that, to be a happy person is a lot better. It's a lot better to wake up happy to face whatever life has than it is to wake up in dread every day.
Yeah. I'll say thank you so much for sharing that and for coming into this space with us and just leading with openness and vulnerability. I can't even imagine how much courage it takes to be able to share that in this way. So I just so appreciate you for that. And I know that we just met recently, but I'm so proud of you. And I'm so thrilled that you feel this way about where you are now. It's so obvious in just your energy and how you show up for the people around you. It's really, really inspiring to see just in the small glimpses and interactions that we've had. It's really lovely. Thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, your journey to recovery, it's so inspiring, right? And I love that it's so linked to this thing that now brings you so much joy. And is just such a purpose driving part of your life. And I think part of that really resonated with me when we first chatted is that you described your life now as feeling like this ongoing state of recovery, to where it's not just this phase that you went through or even that particular moment. It is a way that you move through the world in this ongoing way. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. You talked a little bit about that initial shift. I'm curious how that kind of manifested and unfolded, and then also how it began to change how you saw yourself and the kind of person that you wanted to become in that shift.
I think for most of my life, I was a very negative person in outlook, and just pessimistic in general, right? And I said out loud to people about my negativity that if I'm pessimistic and a good thing happens, then I'm surprised and I'm happy. But I felt like at the time, I was just getting a lot of bad stuff happening. Negative things were just kind of the deal. And, part of that I felt like was just like army stuff is sometimes kind of that way. But after I finished in Colorado, I walked across Missouri. I didn't have much experience in Missouri, and I was walking on a flat rail trail, so it wasn't necessarily difficult physically. I was alone, so there was some difficulty that way. But after that, I went to Florida, and I do have some real negative emotions linked with the state of Florida for different reasons, like childhood things and weather things. And I got to Florida and I had a very negative mindset still. And the first maybe week of hiking on the Florida Trail was not enjoyable for me. I wasn't having that same, I love this feeling as I did in Colorado. I was also at the time a very negative person on social media. I was trying to be positive in real life, but negative on social media. And those two things are not separate, right? Social media is real life. And the way that I think on social media is how I continue to think in real life. And I made a conscious decision while I was in Florida to every day find something that I thought was beautiful, whether it was a flower or the lake or the river or the something. I needed to find something that I thought was beautiful and that I could appreciate, right? Instead of focusing on just all this, the mosquitoes or the this or the that. And I also made the decision to try to not focus my social media energy on those negative things. Those were the two big steps for me to take, is to realize that I'm in control of my brain, right? I am in control of what my brain tells me or doesn't tell me. I'm in control of the way that I look at my surroundings and the way that I can appreciate them. And now, because I made myself do it in the place that I didn't want to do it, now you can put me anywhere and it's beautiful, right? You can tell me to walk through North Dakota. Actually, people told me not to walk through North Dakota because it was boring and it's flat and it's this, that. I love North Dakota. I thought it was amazing. I walked through fields of sunflowers as far as my eye could see. I saw rock formations that I didn't see in any other place. And at this point, my perspective, my view of the world is completely different. I'm not seeing the same planet that I did 5 years ago. And I know that for a fact because I've been to places since I've started hiking that I had either lived in or visited, and I look around and I think, was that mountain there when I was here? I don't think so.
Wow.
Right. But now I see it. Now I see every mountain. I see every tree. I appreciate the rocks and the sand and you name it outside, and I love it, And that's because I made myself do that. And I think, limit ourselves, kind of on what we think our brain can or can't accomplish, or how we think our brain will or will not think. But we're in control of that little thing up there. We're in control of it, and I'm realizing that now. And it's taken me a long time to get to a point where I don't have to just listen to what's going on up there. I can control it.
Wow. That's so powerful and so inspiring, right? That it's not as simple. Simple, I think, is often a misleading word, right? It makes it seem like it's easy, which absolutely is not. But it's this simple way to just shift your perspective on everything, and just how much of a difference that's made in your own internal experience of the world. Like that's so profound. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And there are so many pieces of your story that I'm super interested to hear about, like how there were so many walks that came before the walk that I know you from, right? The walk across America. So it's really cool to kind of see that progression as well. And I'm curious, like thinking about leading up to that moment, that decision to actually do what I imagine is probably your biggest conquest yet, the walk across America, months of your life, thousands of miles. I cannot even comprehend how many miles 4,000 miles is. I'm so curious sort of how that began, that specific part of your journey, where the idea came from. And, when you did commit to it, what did you hope that it might give you or teach you, maybe in a way that you hadn't learned something from the trails that you had been on before?
Mm-hmm. So I decided that I wanted to do this in 2023.
Oh, wow. Okay.
2021 was filled with hiking. 2022 was also pretty much all hiking. I hiked the Appalachian Trail in 22. And by the end of 2022, I had walked 4,000 miles.
Wow.
So from August of 21 until like October, November of 22, it's about 4,000 miles. And my body was pretty spent. It was pretty wrecked. I decided to give my body a break for the year of 23. And I went back to the Appalachian Trail and I helped at some hostels and just kind of encouraged the other hikers. And I had a great time doing that. But I wanted to keep walking. But my body, it's my neck. So I have some compression between some vertebrae and it causes pinching a nerve. And then my arm goes numb and it's hard to do with a backpack. But I remembered seeing a guy on YouTube who had walked from New Jersey to Argentina.
Wow. Wow.
With a cart and his puppy or his dog. And so the idea of wanting to hike other trails, but not necessarily needing a backpack was the first idea. And then as I was around all hikers all the time, I found that hiking, like a lot of things, there's some kind of natural progression that people will do. So for hiking, it's that if you hike the Appalachian Trail, then you normally go and you hike the Pacific Crest Trail, and then you go and hike the Continental Divide Trail, And those are the three major trails in the US. And so those are the three trails that most people hike, and those trails take typically 4 to 7 months. But when I started doing this, I did it for the sense of freedom as much as anything else. The idea that like I'm just out in the woods doing whatever I want and like nobody's really telling me what to do is part of the draw to it, And so I decided that I wanted to do something that all my friends weren't doing. And something that like nobody could tell me that I didn't do it the right way because of this or that or whatever. Because it's just my thing. And like my personal hiking goals are not the same as everybody else's hiking goals. A lot of my friends want to be a Triple Crown hiker, which is to hike the AT, the PCT, and the CDT. My personal hiking goal is to walk or hike through every state in the country. Wow. And that's a very different goal, And so the things that I want to do to achieve that are different than the things that my other hiker friends want to do to achieve their goals. And so once I had thought of the stroller idea, it was hard for me to like put it off for any amount of time. So at the end of 2023, I was in Maine working at a hostel. I bought a stroller and I went to Portland, Maine, and I started walking with the idea that I was going to walk across the country at that point. I also took a vow of silence during this time. So I left Portland, Maine on like October 17th or something like that and walked down to Harper's Ferry, which is just outside of kind of DC area, without talking for about a month and a half. And then I took a break for the winter and I was planning on coming back in 24 to go finish the hike. But my body said it wasn't going to happen. So in 24, I started back where I left off and did about 200 miles and my neck wouldn't let me go any farther. I was asleep at night. My arm was just constantly like throbbing and it was just too much. And so I put it off to the next year. And it was hard to do. It was hard to sit and do other things while I thought that was my year to do this thing. And it caused a lot of stress in my life. And I just generally probably wasn't as happy a person that year. And it was because of expectations. But I went to physical therapy and I trained and I got my body back to a place where I thought it would be able to go. And so in March of 25, I went back to Cape Henlopen where I had already been a little bit before, a year and a half prior. And I started back. I try not, especially now, especially after that failed attempt in 24. And I've had some other times when I've had to deal with what could be called failure. I try not to go into this past hike with any expectation of a lesson that I would learn or what specific thing I'm trying to get out of it. Rather, I went into it just being open to whatever the universe, or however you want to say it, wants to show me. And I feel that as long as I'm open, that lessons come, and you can only learn them if you're open. If you're open to receiving the lesson, that's when you can learn it. And if I'm not looking for anything, if I'm looking for something specific, I feel like it might close other doors to things because I'm only looking for one thing. So I went into last year just trying to be open to everything, and see what happened. And I did learn. I did learn a lot. Maybe some of it I didn't want to learn, but it's okay. All lessons are good.
I love that. That's so empowering too. I think just, again, going back to that mindset, it's all about being open and being ready for whatever it is the universe or has to offer you by being aware of that. I love that. Yeah. So after months of waiting, months of training, then finally getting back to the starting line, right? In March 2025, you set out on this 4,000-mile walk. And on top of that, from the very beginning, you made this choice to document it publicly on Instagram through your kind of personal blog. And in that process, sharing your experiences as they were happening. And so why did it feel important to share your story in real time in that particular way? And of course, I've got to ask, once you were out there, what did you learn about yourself? And what are some moments from the trail that have really stayed with you?
Why share? I think, so I wasn't a big poster on my other hikes. I would post some things, and I would post, like when I finished or big events that happened. But for this one in particular, I wanted to document it daily, or tried to daily, because when I was trying to find stuff about walking across America, like east to west, it was pretty hard. Like there's not that much out there. And the stuff that is out there, it was kind of like not that helpful for me, like in me trying to like research things the things that mattered to me, like the width of the shoulder of a road, or like, where bathrooms are or are not, and stuff like that. And so partially it was to give information to anybody else that ever wants to do this. Partially it was so that my friends who are in the hiking community, they are not normal hikes. They are very extreme, very hard, very wonderful, very beautiful hikes. And I want to do those hikes. But for the people who are maybe a little bit more constrained in their thoughts of like, what can I go do? I wanted to show that there is another option, and that you can just do whatever you want. Like, nobody's stopping you. There's no actual rule that says you have to do this or that. And then the other group that I am kind of sharing for is non-hikers, non-adventure people. Because I think a lot of people want to do some big adventures, but there is some fear, right? Like anxiety that holds people back from doing some certain things in their life, whether it's hiking or camping or skydiving or just travel in general. I wanted to share for those people so that they either can watch me do it and live vicariously through me, or maybe it would, show them that they can like go do maybe more than they thought that they could do, or that maybe it's okay to like take a risk and go do something outside of your comfort zone. And I wanted to share it in a way that was unfiltered. Like social media is very polished, and I didn't want it to be that way. Like, 'cause that's not me. I want to be authentic about my experience. But it's also not life, and like, if you went to go hike somewhere for a month and you thought every day was going to be wonderful and beautiful and the best day of your life, you're probably kidding yourself. You're going to have like terrible, miserable days where you hate everything. But like, that's also just normal life, like you could go to work and have a miserable, terrible day where you hate everything, but like you're just in an office and not surrounded by mountains and trees and nature, So the human experience is good days and bad days and everything in between. And so I wanted to share all of that stuff. So.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. And like, I just remember when I first was kind of doing an initial, like creeping through all of your past posts, like kind of getting in on like the last quarter of your journey, when someone introduced you to me, just so very like impressed with just the level of authenticity that you just share so freely. And it's so inspiring. I remember there was one clip that I saw. You were like on the side of a road riding your bike, and like just so grateful that you had enough room that the cars weren't going to like swerve around you. And I just thought that was so, I don't know, just things that you don't think to be grateful for. Just the simple, like literally your safety of being so positive about it. I think it speaks to just your mindset just in so many different ways. But yeah, I was so very drawn to the way that you presented your journey. And I love that that was exactly your intention as well. Totally got that. But yes, please continue. Let me know more about things that you learned, all those things.
Having walked a lot prior to this, there's a lot of lessons that you learn on any hike, and patience. If you're walking everywhere, you kind of have to be patient. Like the world only moves so fast when you're walking. So patience is something I have struggled with a lot in my life, is being patient. Delayed gratification is something that I struggled with for a long time. But when you're walking everywhere and that cheeseburger that you want is 45 miles away and it's going to take 2 days until you can eat it, I mean, you just have to wait, right? Like there's literally nothing else you can do. So forcing myself to learn patience, forcing myself to learn some perseverance and self-confidence that, if you had known me all my life and you just saw me from the outside, and you would probably have assumed that I was very confident and like that the military had given me some like ways to be like very strong-minded and how to persevere through tough times. But honestly, it didn't teach me those things because I wasn't ready to learn those things. And hiking taught me those things. And I could go back and think about those kind of things that people had told me, or things that I had heard in previous times in my life. And I could draw on the wisdom now, but I couldn't then. And I think during the last year, though, the biggest thing that I learned about myself is that I can ask for help. I've been trying to do things on my own as much as possible because I feel that I was a very selfish person for most of my life. And I put my needs above a lot of other people's needs, and I hurt a lot of people because of it. And so during these last few years, I've tried as hard as possible to be self-reliant and to not ask people for things. But then that kind of became like a little bit of an ego thing, that I don't need your help, or I don't want your help even sometimes, because I can do it on my own. I learned this year that like, actually nobody does anything on their own. Like literally no one, unless you're on a deserted island, right? Like we all use roads that are maintained by other people, right? Like every hiker I know hikes on a trail that was maintained by probably someone else than them, Even if you own your own business, you're not mailing, you send those packages out, but like the mail person is carrying your mail, like no matter what we do in life, we are not alone. And the ability to ask for help, I think, is an important thing that a lot of us are maybe hesitant to do. And for whatever reason, whether for me, I don't want to impose on someone, or maybe I'm also scared of rejection sometimes, or whatever the reason. But it was hard for me to ask for help, and it was hard for me to accept help that was offered to me. One night I was in a hotel room and I was doing social media stuff, and I had a friend reach out, and she asked if I needed any money or if I needed anything. And I said, no, I'm okay. But if I do need something, I'll reach out, with the full intention of never reaching out and just like just blowing off that conversation. Right? But I laid in bed then for a couple hours and I thought about it, In 2023, when I was working at hostels, one of the things that I was able to do is something called trail magic, which is just somebody going out to the trailhead and hanging out and handing out food or handing out drinks. And I got a lot of that when I was on the AT. People giving me hamburgers and hot dogs and drinks and food to take with me. And I've literally walked up to places and started crying because it meant so much at that time. And so I wanted to do that and give back. So in 2023, I was able to give a lot of trail magic. And the joy that I felt from giving to those hikers and seeing their smiles and hearing them tell me how good the hamburger was, or thank you for bringing a vegan thing, or whatever it was, I got more joy than those people, right? The joy on their faces brought me so much happiness. And I was laying in bed when I told my friend that I didn't need her help. And I thought about that. And I thought about how happy I am when I can help someone else. And how I feel like a part of their journey, like my burger that I cooked you helped you get to wherever you're trying to get to. And that made me happy. And I realized that I took away that feeling from my friend, right? Because of my insecurities and my ego and my whatever, I took that joy away from my friend who wanted to do something nice for me. And that night, I sent her a message back and I said, actually, I would appreciate something. If you are willing to give me whatever you're willing to give me, I would be more than happy to take that.
Wow.
And it changed my perspective on accepting help and asking for help, And so I think the biggest thing I learned about myself is that it's not just myself, right? Like I'm not just by myself. Nothing that I do affects just myself.
Wow.
And that asking for help is one of the best things that I can do for myself. And also maybe one of the best things that I can do for my friends, because giving is a great thing to be able to do.
Wow. I love that. I love that way of thinking. That's lovely.
Thanks.
It really sounds like the people were the thing that really grounded you and were especially impactful during this particular part of your journey. I'm curious, like, if you can think of any particular moments, maybe with people that you met or friends or, parts of the walk. I mean, it was 7.5 months of, meeting people, and just what were some moments, maybe just to give us like a little bit of that space of living vicariously through you.
Yeah. There's actually so many people.
Sure.
So on my second day, I got a message from someone who asked me if I needed a place to stay, and that she was like pretty near where I was going to be walking through. And I said no. I hadn't reached the part yet where I was like just saying that I needed to accept the help. I said no, but the fact that it was just my second day and like a friend who, I mean, we're like social media friends. We worked together like 15 years ago, but it's not like we're talking on the phone, but the fact that she's willing to just day 2, just, hey, come stay with me and the kids and the husband and hang out. And that I think kind of set the tone for like how my entire walk was going to go. Because I felt like I was constantly being offered things from people. When I got into Ohio, I don't know if you've ever been to Ohio. When I tell people that I walk through Ohio, they're all like, oh, I'm sorry. But actually, Ohio, favorite state. It's my favorite state that I walked through this year. And it's not because of the views. It's because of the people. Like, wow. People talk about like Midwest nice. I think that specifically they're talking about Ohio. and like maybe Minnesota. Like those might be the nicest places. Yeah. I got into Ohio, and the next 5 meals that I tried to buy, somebody else bought for me. And like, they would just walk into a fast food place, put the money in front of me, and like to just hand to the cashier. And I like, they just saw the sign on my stroller and said, I want to buy your food. Wow. And a lady and her husband were driving down a road, and they stopped in the middle of the road. And the lady rolls her window down and she says, oh, it's you. And I said, oh, it's me. Do I know you? And she said, no. But she had seen or heard about me from somewhere. And she said, do you need anything? And I said, yeah, water. I'm like kind of basically out. And she asked how much. And I said like 2 liters. She said, okay, we'll be back. And they drove off. And then they came back like 15 minutes later. And she had a bag with 3 liters of water and some electrolytes and snacks and all kinds of stuff. And then she like handed me the stuff, and then we talked for a couple minutes, and they said, okay, have a good day. And then they drove away, and that was kind of my whole experience through Ohio. Like it was just constantly people stopping to check on me or ask if I needed anything or feed me or let me sleep somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah, it is incredible how nice that state was. And I would get stuff like that everywhere. People are nicer than what I think people think.
Mm.
Like if you look at the media that we're fed or that we can consume, it's all pretty negative and like
Mhm.
shines a pretty, I think, negative light on humanity as a whole. But like as I walk through the country, it's not like that at all.
Mhm.
I had one negative experience with one person in 7.5 months.
Oh my gosh.
Like what?
Wow.
Other than that, I just had like super nice people and
Wow.
like, so I mean, those are the biggest moments. The people moments are the things that stick with me. But there's, natural moments that have stuck with me too, like walking through North Dakota again and the sun setting in front of me and
Mm.
behind me, the moon is rising and the sky
Mhm.
is completely black, but in front of me, it's still blue. Like I can
Mm.
see every shade of the sky
Wow.
in one moment. All I have to do is look from one side to the other. There was a moment walking through Bozeman Pass.
Mm.
There's a sign. I was walking on the interstate, and there was a sign that's talking about the pass and how somebody Bozeman in the 1700s was leading settlers through Bozeman Pass, and that for the thousands of years before that, the natives had used it as a way to get from one side of the Rockies to the other.
Wow.
And I was walking the same path that thousands and thousands of people had walked for generations. And I was able to appreciate the rocks and just the formations of the rocks and how
Mm.
big they are and how long they've been there.
Mm.
And I'm watching all these cars drive past me and you can see it when you drive, but like you can only see the glimpses and the outlines and the fuzzy shapes of it. You don't get to see the little holes in the rocks that you can see the sun through, you know?
Mm.
When I say little, but I mean, it's a 80-foot rock, so the hole's probably like as tall as me, but it looks, you know? And to see these things that generations and generations before us have
Mm.
experienced, and I feel that those things have been taken away from us a little bit, and that
Mhm.
the hustle and bustle of modern life doesn't allow us to look at those small things and appreciate the things that our great 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 grandfathers and grandmothers and aunts and uncles and all the people that came before us, the things that they got to see,
Mm.
because we're just too busy, you know. And
Mm.
so those are the things that stick with me. Also, some of the things that stick with me are, not being able to find a bathroom, being attacked by flies,
Oh my
uh,
goodness.
feeling like my head is melting and that I can't go another day. But those things stick with me because those are the things that I made it through. And
Mm.
next time I'm feeling like I'm not going to make it through, I can look back and say, yeah, actually, I made it through all these other things. Like, let's this one. So,
I love that. I love that so much. That you're, I mean, the way I asked the question, it's what moment stuck out to you. And it speaks to your character and your mindset. I think that, yes, there's so much beauty and there's so much joy and so much connection and love, but also like this reminder of these really difficult things that you have had to figure out. Like, and as you mentioned, there was no precedent really for you to navigate that. You just did it. Like, that's truly something to be proud of and absolutely something to kind of fuel you going forward. So through all of that and more, so many things that we don't even have time to cover. But for anyone curious, definitely go through Learning Curve's Instagram because it is a whirlwind and just so inspirational. But you talked about you actually finished the walk in October of 2025, 7.5 months later, 4,000 miles later. And at this point, it's about 4 months since you arrived in La Push, Washington, that finish line, and you stepped off the trail. And I'd love to know, sitting here now on the other side of that experience, these are some really, really great questions, I think. How would you describe the person you're becoming and what feels most important to you in this season of your life? And as you reflect on all of this so much, right, what do you hope that your story accomplishes for the people that get to hear it?
so I did finish at the end of October. and I took about 3 weeks off. I hung out with some friends, some new friends and some old friends. But then, I was not ready to be done. And so I went back down. I went down to California and I started walking back to the East Coast.
Wow.
And that was a real struggle for me. And almost every day I was struggling with motivation. Why was I doing it? Why did I keep walking? Why do I even want to keep walking? I had to ask myself why a lot, and also to ask myself, is it just an ego thing? Just so that I can say that I did something, right? And not long after New Year's, so maybe around the 10th of January, I was in Albuquerque and trying to decide what I wanted to do. And then I got a bit of a hip injury, which made it easy for me to then decide that I wanted to stop walking. But it also made it easy for me to say that I wanted to stop walking then because I wasn't waking up feeling joyful. I wasn't waking up looking forward to the walking thing. And I love walking so much. I cannot express like how much I love it. That if something happens and during my walk, like if for a week, every day I wake up and I say, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Then I think it's the right time for me to not be doing it. I am someone who firmly believes that failures don't define us. Failure and quitting, I think, have very negative connotations in our society. But for me, failure is pretty necessary, and failure is part of progression, Every person that is great at anything has failed more times than probably people that are just okay at something because they're willing to keep trying and to keep doing it. Now that I'm not walking, I'm trying to, it's hard to sort through 7 months of new memories every day. I think I have probably like 15,000 pictures from last year.
Oh my goodness.
That is really hard to sort through. And then, every picture carries with it more than just what's there. It carried with it, what I was feeling at the time and a lot of emotions, just from looking at a picture of a bathroom, or a cemetery or some random other place that I slept. And so I think I'm still just trying to really process everything and really appreciate how amazing the last year was. How blessed I am to have an opportunity to live a life like this. I know not everybody would want to live this way, but I also know that not everybody has the ability to live this way if they wanted to. And so I am very fortunate to be in a position where I can go out and I can wander and I don't have to worry about going to work or how am I going to pay for this or for that. I get a little bit of money every month from the VA and, I'm okay now with the little bit that I have. And I think for right now, my focus for myself is contentment with what I have, contentment with where I am. But going forward, I have a lot of energy that I feel is not just for me. And so for this next year, my plan is to give back again to the hiking community.
Wow.
I'll be back out east, volunteering at some hostels and helping and trying to share as much of my experience as I can and encourage as many hikers as I can and try to see as many of those people succeed as possible. Because I needed that encouragement. I needed that support from other people. And so for me now, I want my energy to be used in that way. Last year was, I feel like, a time for me to focus on myself. And now I have some time to focus on others and give back and try to be as helpful as possible. And then, there's more walking. There's always more walking. Yeah. So I'm at 33 states out of 50, and I hope to be done within the next couple-ish years. So probably at the end of this year, I'll just be walking again. In the meantime, I just, I just hope to be able to continue growing and observing myself and being, as focused on my self-improvement as I can be while also helping other people around me. So, yeah. As far as what I think I would want my story to accomplish, I don't know that I necessarily like the word inspire, but I do like the word encourage. And I would like people to feel encouraged that no matter what has happened and no matter how bad you think things are, that there's always alternatives, right? There's always different options. And I think sometimes we as humans are scared to do things because failure is very scary. But I now view failure as part of my process. I would not be the person that I am today if I had not have failed so spectacularly in my life. I had a real flame out moment, and for a long time it went the way that most people would assume. But I could not have become the person that I am today without that huge flame out. And so no matter what it is, it's okay to fail and it's okay to not achieve something. Those are okay things, and you can become whatever it is that you want to in spite of the failures, or maybe because of the failures. Maybe the failure is the thing that made you understand this thing. And for me, my failures have helped me understand my place in this world and my place as a friend and maybe my place as a parent. But those failures are what made me who I am. And so don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Go do big things, dream big things, reach for everything. Maybe you get it, maybe you don't. But that's life. Life is messy and hard and full of tough days, and you just have to push through those things. And I think it's better to dream and try and reach and love those things that you're trying to do rather than just do the thing that's easy and that's comfortable and that leaves you in a rut and leaves you feeling unhappy. Because there's a lot of happiness out there and it's a pretty unlimited supply. So just have to go find it.
I love that. I love so much of what you just said. Partially, I think actually mostly because it's just so embodies exactly why I wanted to create the space for stories like yours. To be able to see the beauty and the value in embracing being a works in progress, being on that learning curve in life, and having that openness and that mindset and how much that shifts, how we move through the world as a result, and the people we're able to impact and the people who are able to impact us in return. I love that. I love how you summarize that. So I know I've asked you a lot of questions, Elsie, and I promise I only have one more. I would love to know, what do you hope the next version of you knows how to do? Yeah,
a lot, everything. I hope the next version of me knows how to do literally everything. I want to learn how to sail so that I can sail around the world, right? I want to learn how to make pottery just because it looks cool. I want to learn how to express myself more creatively. I've never been a very creative person, and that's something or I've never had a creative outlet, right? And so that's something that I want to pursue, is finding what creative outlet inspires me and motivates me and something that I love to do just for the love to do it, not because it can make me money. But then on a different level, I want my future self to know how to support my friends as best as possible. I want to know how to love people in the way that they want to be loved and not in the way that I feel that I need to love them. I want to know how to be a better friend to my friends. I want to know how they want to be supported. I want to know maybe a little bit better where I fit in this world, but also how where I fit in this world can help the world. And I don't know where or how I can help this planet that sometimes seems like it's nothing but chaos, but I hope I learn how and the way that I can best do that. Basically, I do want to know how to do everything. I want to see everything. I want to experience it all. But I also want to be there for the people that love me and that I love. And also, I want to be there for the people that don't love me and that maybe think that I don't love them, but I do.
Wow. Learning Curve, thank you for sharing so openly and so courageously. And to everyone listening, I hope Elsie's story reminds you that you are not defined by who you once were, and that you always have a say in who you're becoming. That's today's conversation. Here's to all of us, works in progress on purpose.
I made it. We really can't get on the beach anywhere because of these logs. But we made it, and I'm here on that first beach in La Push, Washington. Can you believe it? Me either. I've spent the last hour of this walk crying on and off, catching views of the beach, and now I'm here, and I'm about to go onto the beach. It's the ocean. I made it.